of Recovery Monday, at least for now. Is there life after recovery? What does it look like? What comes next? It is Monday. This is episode 33 of Recovery Monday. So let's go through that now. And I'm going to put the chat up on the screen like I usually do. As you guys pop in, just let me know that everything is working. As you can see, slightly different setup today. I'm just tired of sitting in the office. So new MacBook that allows me to do this with the new camera and everything. So hopefully it's working. So just let me know that everything is working, that you can hear me, that you can see me. All good. Thanks, B. Appreciate it. I actually needed a new MacBook to be able to do this. My old one could not encode the video fast enough. So, and it's beautiful out, and this is where I want to be. So this is where we're going to be for the next 20 or 30 minutes. Let's see what happens. I'll just let everybody kind of stream in here. Usual suspects, I'm sure. Everybody just let me know where you're coming from. Let me know how you're doing. Thank you, GBG. I appreciate it. YouTube is here. Facebook is here. I'll remind you that if you're coming from the Facebook group, I won't be able to see your name. I'll only see Facebook user, but that's not new. Hello, Katya. How are you? Kendra is here. I just will remind everybody pretty quickly that every week, or for the last 33 weeks or so, this is the last chapter in this book, we have been doing lessons right out of this book, The Anxious Truth. This is my anxiety, panic, and agoraphobia recovery guide. So if you do not have this book and you want to go back through and read along and go back and listen to all the old videos, you can check this out on my website at theanxioustruth.com. That's where all my other stuff is too. So let's get cooking here. This is always a big question. People want to know, like, hey, are you fully recovered? And what does it look like? What does recovery actually look like when it happens? So we're going to talk about that today. There's a lot of really good stuff. I think this was probably the most uplifting part of the book that I wrote when I wrote it. It was my favorite part. It's a very short little chapter at the end, but yeah, kind of give you a glimpse at what it looks like and what you can look forward to and all that kind of good stuff. So hey, everybody, Jersey is here. St. Louis is here. The UK is here. What up, Jason? How you doing? I am inspiring your son. Well, thank you. Those are very kind words, and I'm happy that I'm able to do that in some way. I will try to continue if I can. So this week we are on the very last chapter of The Anxious Truth. This is chapter 6. There are no lessons in it. It's one little short chapter, and it is called, can you see it? What's next? So this chapter is all about essentially like, where are you now? Now that you've gone through this whole book, now you've maybe working on your recovery plan, now that you're actually actively engaged in the process, what do you have to look forward to? So I'm going to read a little bit out of this because I think it's, there's not a lot to read, and I think what I wrote sort of says it. When I set out to write this book, my goal was to take you from sort of lost and anxious and confused and afraid and discouraged to empowered, knowledgeable, understanding, and maybe inspired or emboldened to actually move forward. None of this was your fault. If you're in a hole right now, you didn't decide to go there, So yeah, it's let's see, hang on, moves cat away from the touchscreen, his tail's making drop and down. It could be me rattling this table too. I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know if I have image stabilization in the camera. So anyway, if it's the cat, So my goal in writing The Anxious Truth was to take you from that point to get you to the point where you're not lost anymore. You're not confused. You're not, Claire Weeks called it, bewildered. You're not discouraged. You don't feel lost or helpless. Like, you have some idea of how you got to where you are today, what the nature of the actual problem is, what the nature of the solution is, how to make a plan to go toward recovery, how to execute that plan, how to start moving forward. So that was really my goal. My hope would be that when somebody got done reading this book, that's where they would wind up. So as you move down the road and get further along in the recovery process, those are the things that I think you have to look forward to. You don't feel lost. You don't feel confused. You don't feel like things happen to you randomly. You don't feel like you're being attacked by some external force that you can't control. You have some idea of what's going on. You have an idea of the mechanics of this. You have an understanding of the concepts of an anxiety disorder and the concepts of recovery. And those things become portable and they stay with you long past your last panic attack, long past your agoraphobia. And there are things that will come with you throughout the rest of your life as we go through this journey. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about today for sure. Great. The sun is moving, which is going to change the exposure. So I'm making this up as I go along here. Let's hope. I have to lean forward a little bit. Let's see. So what I talked about here is what comes next. What can you expect as you execute your recovery plan? Is it really possible to live free from fear? And what will your new life look like? And the answer to that is, yeah, it is possible to live free from irrational fear. So let me be clear about this. This is not about like, oh, when you're fully recovered, you'll never be anxious again or you'll never be afraid again. That's not true. And that would be completely unrealistic. It wouldn't be fair for me to promise you that. You may experience anxiety. You may even experience things like panic. You may have intrusive thoughts sometimes. You may be afraid and uncomfortable sometimes. It just won't rule your life anymore. So if I were to have a panic attack right now, which is certainly possible, I would want to, but I might, I could have a panic attack today. It would come, it would go, it'd be over in 10, 15 minutes. I'd feel shitty for another hour or so afterwards, I'm sure. And then it would be done. It would be over. I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. That's what it looks like. That's what recovery looks like. You are living a life free from irrational fear. You're no longer being dictated to by your fear all the time. It doesn't drag you up and down the street anymore. Recovery is really about having built a new, healthy, normal relationship to things like anxiety, panic, and fear. That's what we're after here. That is a full life for a human being. We do not get to walk on the planet free of anxiety or fear, always being happy, thrilled, and totally comfortable and content all the time. That's not what life is. That's not the human condition. So we just want to get back to being fully human in the healthiest way that we can be. And that's what that sort of looks like. One of the things that happens though along the way is there's so many ups and downs, right? So to quote one of my favorite movies, a lot of ups, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, right? So that's what they said in the Big Lebowski. There's a lot of stuff that goes along with the recovery process. There are a lot of experiences. There are a lot of lessons that get learned. There are ups, there are downs, there are all those things, and there are lessons in there. Patience and persistence. You learn new. I'm going to read some of what I wrote here. You will learn new ways to view the world. Things that seem like threats to you now will be easy to dismiss when you are done. That is so important. The things that you feel are important and terrifying and must be addressed and are impossible to deal with and you can't control will not seem like threats to you anymore. So that's what life after recovery looks like. That's what comes next. You'll build confidence. You'll discover your inner sense of competence. Competence comes before confidence, by the way. Nobody goes through this process without gaining an appreciation for how strong and able they really are, and that is true. You might think of yourself as weak or unable or whatever, but that's not true. You are. You actually are. And then in the end, the hard days, and there will be hard days. Hard days will teach you compassion for yourself, how to be patient, how to let yourself off the hook, how to not beat yourself up. These are all really important things. You learn those things. But in the end, when you learn to be compassionate with yourself, you learn to be compassionate with other people too. So there are so many really great benefits that come out of this process. There are no benefits to an anxiety disorder. I'm not that guy. I'm never going to tell you that. I may have to muck with my exposure just a little bit here because the sun is going to be a little bit brighter. But yeah, there's self-compassion that comes out of this. There's patience. There's an understanding of how strong you are, how capable you are. There's a sense of competence. There's a sense of confidence that comes along with that. And you get to be a little bit more compassionate and a little bit more patient and a little bit more understanding of other people, whether they're going through similar problems or just life in general. So these are the things you have to look forward to. And one of the things that I say all the time, I wrote this process and the process of solving it can feel like walking through fire. It may be, but there is gold forged in those fires. And I write that from my heart and my own personal experience. And I say it all the time. There was gold forged in those fires. And yes, I was on fire. I was in the fire. I was walking through it. But in the end, there was gold forged in there and it mattered. But here's probably the biggest thing for today, I think. Most people will say, okay, yeah, that all sounds great. But Drew, is it really possible to actually recover? And the answer is 100% yes. But people will feel like they'll say, is it really possible to live a life free of this misplaced fear or irrational fear? Is recovery just a pipe dream? I hear that all the time. Is this just a pipe dream? This is never going to happen for me, right? And I understand that when you are struggling, it seems like recovery is not possible. And I think everybody who's been through this has felt that from time to time. It happens. Like, I don't know, is this ever going to get better? But the bottom line is that yes, it can get better. I would not have invested the many, 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 many hours of my life that I have in this subject if it were not possible. I did it. I watch all of you guys do it. There are people in this video right now in the comment section that are doing it, some of which have actually done it and might call themselves fully recovered. Yes, it is 100% possible. It's not only possible, but it's actually doable. It's not this crazy long shot, even though right now you might think that it is a complete long shot, but it is not. Once you start to understand and apply the concepts and do the work and learn the lessons and uncover that strength and that competency and that confidence, then yeah, it actually is possible. It's not only possible, it's almost inevitable. as crazy as that sounds. And I know that right now you're judging that based on, but I feel so badly right now. But I feel so bad, and all I want to do is never feel like this again. And it doesn't seem possible to feel good again. But I want you to understand the difference between feeling better and getting better, which is something that I read in David Byrne's book, Feeling Good. He wrote a book about depression, and he talks about that all the time. There's a difference between feeling better, which is what you want right now, and getting better, which is really where you're headed in recovery. When we get better at forming that relationship with anxiety and fear and panic and vulnerability and all of those things, the intrusive thoughts. We build new relationships with them. Somebody asked, is recovery never having anxiety or intrusive thoughts? No, that's not recovery. It could be, it's very possible. But when you build this new relationship, I know it seems completely foreign to you. It's like trying to explain the color red to somebody who can't see. But trust me, as you go through and you discover these things and you have these experiences again and again and again, you start to understand that, oh, that's right. If I see this a different way, if I relate to this behaviorally in a different way, it can never be the same again. It can never be the same again. If I have a panic attack today, that panic attack cannot be the same panic attack that it was in 2005. It can't. It's impossible. It can physiologically feel the same. I can have the same scary thoughts. I can have the same fear, but it is not the same experience. That is critically important. That's the difference between feeling better and getting better. If I have a panic attack right now, it would look the same and feel the same, but it would be a completely different experience than I used to have. Change the exposure again. I guess it's getting sunnier and sunnier as we go. Sorry, guys. Hopefully, this is working out. Um, the other thing that I would say about is recovery possible is not only is it possible, but it's not just people who read my books or listen to the podcast or people in the Facebook group or whatever. This is not new stuff. This way of approaching these disorders, the way we talk about it, the way I write about it, the way I talk about it in my podcast, the questions you guys asked, these things are all pretty well proven at this point. This is not a thing that I invented. I didn't come up with this. I didn't invent any of it, to be totally honest with you. I just appear to be really good at teaching it and talking about it. But this is stuff that we have been working on for decades and decades and decades, starting in the very beginning of behaviorism and behavioral theory and cognitive theory and combining those two and sort of the old school CBT, which was really very effective. But now we're even better at it with more third wave therapies that are targeted toward the particular problems that we're addressing in this community. Yeah, this is not just me. It's not just, oh, I got better and Ingvild got better and Bethany got better and the admins in Drew's Facebook group got better. Like people that never heard of me get better this way every single day, every single day. I didn't make this up. This is not new. Okay, this is not new. So that's kind of what that looks like. So in the end, I asked the question, so what does life look like after recovery? And I'm just going to read this from you because it's really like the last couple of paragraphs in the book. What will life look like after recovery? So I wrote, without all that misplaced fear, there is no avoidance. There is no need to retreat or escape. There are no safety rituals, no special requirements to get you through a day. You won't get through days, you will live them. That's what it looks like. In a post-fear life, you will experience human emotions without being afraid of them. After recovery, you will find yourself be able to plan and set a course for yourself without being obsessed or paralyzed by worry. Your sense of internal direction will grow and get stronger. This is the ability to make choices and trust yourself without endless doubt and questioning. Your craving for external guidance and validation begins to fall away. Knowing that you are capable of doing life on any terms, you will act more confidently and assuredly than you ever imagined possible. That's what life starts to look like after recovery. Trust me on this. There will be challenges for sure, but in the end, I address that. There will be challenges of growth, achievement, and satisfaction, but you will no longer be challenged to simply exist and survive. Your ability to accurately and objectively assess challenges and threats will surprise you. Right now, you have no reasonable ability to assess challenges and threats. Everything is a threat. Everything is a danger. Everything is an emergency to you right now. It won't be like that anymore. Like emergencies become very clear. I know when an emergency is right now. And trust me, there are very few of them in life. Even though back in 2010, in 2008, in 2005, in 1999, my life was one giant continuous emergency. Now I have very few emergencies, a much bigger life with much fewer emergencies. I want you to chew on that for a little while. That's another thing that life looks like after that. And then in the end, people often wonder, how can I get the old me back? And I wrote about this here. And I can speak to that personally. This is something that I used to pine for all the time. All I wanted to do was get the old me back. I wanted the old Drew back. But in the end, most people who go down this road will say, well, I didn't necessarily get the old me back. I got a better version of me back. And I'm not saying you're broken and need to be improved or fixed or made better or anything like that. Everybody is valuable in every state that they're in. But the lessons that this process taught me, I am I am a far more well-rounded person. I am a better version of me than I was before. I wanted non-anxious me back, but I didn't get that person back. I got a better version of him back. And this is a thing that I hear echoed again and again and again in the community. All I wanted to do was never feel anxious again. And in the end, that's what I wanted, but that wasn't really what I needed. And when I got what I needed, I realized, oh, I'm way better than the old non anxious me used to be. So keep that in mind as you pine for the days when you didn't panic or you didn't have intrusive thoughts. That's not the point. Like learning to deal with these things in a more productive way, a healthier way, changes everything. Everything. Yeah, I just the comment here. I feel like I'm more emotionally rounded. It's nice. It is nice. It is nice. I can tell you that I'm much more emotionally well rounded now than I used to be, for sure. I was a little bit. I was calling myself armor plated. You guys have probably heard me talk about this before. I was like coated in titanium. Nothing bothered me. I never got anxious. I don't know if that was true now in retrospect, but I have a much more enhanced ability to experience all of the emotions that come along with being a human being. And I like that. That's actually a good thing. When I was at the worst of anxiety and the worst in my most depressed, times, my emotions were my enemies. I did not want to feel them. I was not good at feeling them before I developed an anxiety disorder. During, they were off limits. Every emotion became fear. But now I am very grateful for the fact that I get to access all of my humanity and all of those emotions, even the ones that kind of suck. Like sadness is not a fun emotion, but it is a birthright. It is the right of us as human beings to feel all of those things. They all matter. Sadness even does have a place in life. This morning I was reading a little bit about the difference between sadness and suffering. We'll talk about that one day in one of these live streams. But this is what happens, like a better version of you, a better well-rounded version of you. I could go on for hours about this stuff, but the main thing that I really want to stress again in my own personal experience is my life is 10 times the size that it used to be when I was where you might be today, but I have 1/10 of the emergencies. So you have to ask yourself, well, what is that all about? So it's a much bigger life with far fewer emergencies, urgent situations, threats, dangerous situations, things that I have to really worry about, be paralyzed. How will I feel when I do that? I make no decisions now based on how I feel. And people who go down the path to recovery echo that sentiment. I am no longer dictated to by how will I feel if I do a thing. Will this trigger me? I don't care about triggers anymore. Triggers don't exist. All right, so that is chapter 6 of the book, which is a short little chapter that gives you a glimpse and hopefully what is coming down the road as you get further down the path to recovery. And we use that word, recovery all the damn time, tried to define it a little bit. I know some people are still not sure. Hey, caterpillar, get out of here. What recovery looks like. And in the beginning stages, let me just acknowledge that it is normal to want to shoot at feeling better. That's very normal. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Everybody starts by, I just want this to go away and I just want to feel better. Everybody starts there. It's okay if that's where you are right now. Over time, that goal starts to change and evolve and get massaged a little bit. And I don't know what's coming down the street because you might be able to hear it. But yeah, so it changes and we stop trying to feel better and we start working on actually getting better. So hopefully this helps. The caterpillar completely wants in on the on the video for sure. So I will see if I take a couple of comments here as we go. By the way, the fact that we've done this for 33 weeks blows me away. We didn't do it 33 weeks in a row. We had to skip a few, but 33 of these. It's been a very enjoyable experience. I'm happy that you guys came along for this ride. So let's see if there are any questions and comments that I can answer here. We already know that the cat was shaking Becky's screen. Silvio the Wolf is just a great name. I'm here for that. Oh, Carol, this makes me happy to see. I've had more confidence since following your podcast. Let me just be clear about this, though. That makes me happy, and I'm very thank you for the kind words. It's very nice of you to say that. But I need to point out a thing. You have more confidence not because you listen to my podcast. You have more confidence because you listen to my podcast, and that informs new actions. You take the actions, Carol, and anybody who's listening. You do things. I just point you at the things to do, and then you do them, and that is where the confidence comes from. So my podcast doesn't give you any confidence at all. You make your own confidence, and that is the best. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. So let's see here. I'm going to keep going. Unpredictable lighting makes it more exciting. I don't know. It looks all right. It's doable. So far the autofocus is working. I'm here for all this. The technology is treating me good. It's all right. Oh, this is good. Nikki, thank you for saying this. I will be a much better person after recovery. My empathy is so much more now. Yeah, it kind of is. Like it is really hard to go through these challenges and face them and move through them and navigate through them and not build a greater sense of compassion for other people and for empathy. There's a certain level, I'd like to think that I've always been a kind person. I don't know, maybe some people would argue with that, but I would certainly say that I think I'm a far kinder and warmer person now than I used to be. And that is all from having gone through this 100%. Um, this is important. Sorry that I can't see the name. Knowing the mechanics of second fear. This is one of the reasons. Now, second fear is for those of you who have read the Claire Weeks books. She talks about first fear, second fear. It's an important concept. In my world, I talk about your reaction, right? It's never about what we do. It's about not how we feel. It's about how we react to how we feel. Reaction is the second fear. That is so important. This is one of the reasons why I've talked at length before. And if you're in my Facebook group, I say this. Like, it's far better to take advantage of resources like this book that we're talking about, like my podcast, like other books by folks like Josh and Kim, and the usual suspects that I work with. Access that information and learn the concepts of recovery, learn them and then apply them. That is so much better than just asking, oh, well, now I feel dizzy. What do I do about that? Now I can't breathe. What do I do about that? Now I feel like I'm having a scary thought. What do I do about that? Learn the concepts, educate yourself, and then begin to apply them. That leads you to that lasting recovery and the big changes that I'm talking about today. Just asking how to deal with every bad feeling as you go, it would lead you certainly to believe that this thing that this guy is talking about today is ridiculous. I'm never going to get there. But if all you do is ask for directions on the thing you're feeling right now, and then ask for new directions on the thing you're feeling tomorrow, then yes, it would seem impossible to get to where I am and where recovered people are. But it's not. So let's see here. Sean, what up, dude? I made it on time today, doing a bit better. There's no buts. All right. I dig it, man. Let me put this on the screen. I appreciate this, brother. I made it on time today, doing a bit better, and there's no buts, even though I want to say that. Good job, man. For those of you who don't know Sean's working hard at this too. And no buts is the thing I say all the time. Is there no buts? Because you always want to say like, okay, but, yes, but. There's always a but. Anxiety will always throw the exception to the rule. Oh, I hear what you're saying, Drew, but what about when? But what about when it feels like, no, there's no buts, no but. But doesn't get in there. So let's see. Okay, this is cool. It takes time. The brain has no choice but to change. When I said before that recovery is almost inevitable, like our brains are so incredibly adaptable and plastic and changeable, and they're amazing machines. It's ridiculous. Like we got so lucky that we have them. There's bad design. Sometimes they go a little bit off the rails. There's no doubt about that. But there's such amazing machines and such amazing inventions. The brain is amazing that, yeah, it's almost inevitable when you feed your brain experiences and behave differently and relate differently to the world around you. It almost has no choice but to change. It almost has no choice. So there you go. Oh, Monica's here. I'm living proof of recovery. Thank you, Monica. I appreciate you popping in and saying that, offering some encouragement. It's always nice to hear from people who have gone down the road. So let's see what we got here. No. I'll put this up. This is a tough one. Sometimes I can't necessarily answer specific questions because I don't know you and I don't know the situation. But if you get really high anxiety around types of people of what happened in the past, is Claire Weeks therapy good for you? It's a reasonable question. I've talked about this. I think I've made Instagram videos and posts on it. I don't know if I've ever done a podcast episode, but if I didn't, I will. Not everything is a Claire Weeks problem. Not everything in the world is an exposure problem. Not everything is a floating and accepting problem. It's important that we recognize that. That's not true. Especially Muhammad, I don't know the specifics. I can't know the specifics because I don't know you. But especially when you say things like anxiety around specific types of people because of things that have happened. So I'm always super clear in saying if you are dealing with people who have harmed you, literally harmed you, or are harming you, or have committed, bad acts against you, people that are legitimate threats to your safety, whether that be emotional, mental, or physical, that's not an exposure problem. All right. So that's not an exposure problem. If somebody has harmed you, then that is not a float and accept problem at all. Some of the techniques that come along with that can be useful in working on those things, but we never just say, oh, I have to learn to accept dangerous and abusive situations. I don't know if that helps answer your question, my friend, but it's always important that I say it. Okay, this is a good Haya. Good name, Haya 139. First of all, just a big shout out for getting to the dentist, which is really great. Visits to the doctor and the dentist, huge in this community. Everybody is afraid to go to the dentist. Most people hate the dentist anyway. Like dentists must have the worst complexes, inferiority complexes. Nobody likes them. But this is great. Congratulations on getting to the dentist. But I put it up on the screen because this isn't a program. You guys laugh at me when I say that. This is definitely not a program. You're not following the Drew program. Like I said before, I didn't invent any of this. This is a pretty well-worn methodology for dealing with an anxiety disorder. I'm just teaching it, and I seem to be good at teaching it. But thank you, and I'm glad that you made it to the dentist. It's really great. Um, keep going. Let's see here. The dentist sucks. See, everybody hates the dentist, man. Hate it. Okay, let's put this up on the screen. Every time I have an anxious or bad day with thoughts, I think I'm still unwell. I'm not recovered. Uh, I can't tell you you're recovered or not recovered again because I don't know you, but I think I'm still unwell. Recovery is really initially defined on what you do. It's okay to think that you're unwell. So in that situation, especially in the early days, when you have an anxious thought or something scary happens, or you're just having an anxious day, a bad day, if you will, and you feel that you are unwell, that you are in some sort of danger, something is really wrong. You always think that. It's okay to think that. We are moving toward recovery when we act differently toward that feeling, right? So it's okay to still think that something is really wrong. What we really care about is the changes in what do I do with that feeling? How do I act toward that feeling? How do I react to that alarm in my brain that says, oh, something is really wrong this time? So, no, having the thought doesn't mean you're not recovered. It's what you do in response to that thought that defines your path toward a state we might call, air quotes, recovery. Hopefully that helps. Um, this is good. I'll put this up on the screen. I appreciate this, man. Like mentioning the neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is a thing. Sometimes I'm a little bit reticent to talk about that and throw those words out there because sometimes when people are suffering and they're just trying to feel better, all I want to do is feel better. We can get caught up in terms like neuroplasticity, like it's some sort of magic thing. Neuroplasticity is an amazing thing. That's what I was saying before. Like brains are amazing. People who suffer strokes learn to walk again and talk again and feed themselves again because your brain is amazing. It can just build new pathways and relearn things. So neuroplasticity is one of the probably the biological basis underneath all this. We feed our brains new experiences with different outcomes and new pathways are formed. That's neuroplasticity, and it is our friend here. It is our ally in this process. The thing that sucks is that neuroplasticity also goes the other way. It's the ability to learn and change. But that same neuroplasticity is what gets us sometimes into this situation. I start interpreting my thoughts and my physical sensations and my emotions as a threat. I interpret them as threats. I learn to be afraid of them, and then therefore I become continually afraid of them. That's also, unfortunately, neuroplasticity, but it happens. But the same mechanism, I think I wrote that in the Anxious Truth somewhere. The same mechanism that got you there, the neuroplasticity that got us into this mess, we actually backs us out of the mess. So it's a good thing that it exists. All right, scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Always got to put up a Bethany quote because they're always good. When you grow in your capacity to feel, feelings are no longer disasters and threats. I can't add to that. That's really, really good. And that's true. I'll throw this up on the screen real quick. Do I not practice anymore after recovery? That's a really good question. That is an excellent question. Do I practice being recovered? No, I can't say that I say I have to practice dealing with anxiety anymore. I don't. But what I do is I do have a set of habits and rituals and I don't know, call it self-care, so call it mental health maintenance, physical health maintenance, just like things that people do to be healthy. I meditate. I try to take breaks throughout my day. I exercise on a regular basis. I try to make time to do things that I enjoy. I like to learn. I like to learn new things. I like to read. I like to watch videos about cool subjects that I find fascinating. I like to play my guitars badly. But so is that practice? Yeah. Yeah. That's those are just good life habits. I don't do them specifically to feel good or to make sure that I stay recovered. But I have taken those habits that I learned in recovery and they look a little different now. But yeah, I just engage in what I think is good mental health and physical health hygiene. And yeah, it helps a lot. So no, it's not recovery practice, but I do those things. Maybe that helps. This is huge. Katya says a lot of people say they learned that they are capable of much more than they thought they were, and it is so true. At the heart of this is the idea that what you are feeling physically or that you what you are feeling thinking mentally or feeling emotionally is going to be air quotes too much. This all comes down to it's too much and I can't handle it, and my inability to handle it will lead to some disaster of some kind, be it physical, emotional, a breakdown, a meltdown, psychotic break. Everybody thinks that it will be too much, but it's never too much, right? So none of what you've ever felt has ever been too much. And so when you have these experiences in this new light and reframe this different way, this experience teaches me as opposed to this experience tortures me and must never be repeated. You start to understand, like, oh yeah, I've always handled it. I didn't like the way it felt. It wasn't ideally handled, but it was always handled. This has never broken any of you. Anybody that's in this video right now has never been broken by anxiety or fear. It's really important. Oh, Kat, this is great. This is the worth the price of permission right there. I used to be sad my old self is gone, but thanks to you, you're doing the hard work. I'm starting to love the new me. I'll tell you a really quick story about that, a little bit of a personal story, and I think I may have told this before once or twice. I don't know. I used to pine away, being in the technical field that I was in this ridiculous brain of mine. I remember zillions of passwords, zillions of lines of code. I have a silly brain that way. And so therefore I would never write anything down, had no notes, nothing was documented. I would configure networks on the fly, global networks in real time without testing shit in the lab. Like I was that guy. And I missed that guy so much because I couldn't do that anymore. My brain was so occupied with fear and anxiety and all of those things that ability began to erode. I would forget passwords. I would forget commands. I had to start to write things down, which felt like such a tremendous failure for me because I was never that guy. And I remember it was over Thanksgiving weekend. It was actually on the Paxil Progress website, which doesn't exist anymore, but I was an admin of Paxil Progress, which was all about antidepressant withdrawal. Thousands and thousands of members. It was a very big website. And we were upgrading. I was an admin, but I was also the technical geek. So I was in charge of the servers and whatnot. And we were upgrading one day. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and I was sitting in my office, and we were upgrading the Paxil Progress site and forklifting it from one server to another. And I had like 6 different terminal windows open, and I was just going back and between them, not thinking about anything. And it was a little bit poetic that I had the realization when I was working on that particular website that I was still that guy. Like I was still that guy. But here's the difference. I was typing away like a crazy person and just jumping from window to window, and I was on different routers and servers, and I was installing software, and I was doing everything that I needed to do without even thinking about it at really fast pace because that's the way I can work. And it dawned on me that the guy that I missed so much was still there, but I actually cried a little bit. That was the better version of that guy, because the guy that I used to be would just finish the project, not give it a second thought, not appreciate the ability to do that, not care, and just move on to the next thing. But I realized that I was still that guy, and it actually got a little bit of a little emotional for a couple of minutes. That was okay. So there's a story for it. Whatever. Okay, let's scroll down nearly to the bottom here. Carol nearly made you cry. There's no crying in Recovery Monday. It's okay. You're free to cry. It's all right, dude. Let's see here. Oh, this is good. Let me answer this for Maureen real quick. Let's talk about this. Any comments on the void anxiety used to fill? This is really good. This is a good, like, what comes after recovery comment, right? Um, there's a void. And yeah, there is, as crazy as it sounds, there is a void. So it's funny. You guys have seen me talk to Joe Ryan, joeryan.com. He's been on my podcast. He's actually on the podcast this coming week. We have a really good episode coming up. Joe and I have been buddies for a long time. We had a conversation a couple of months ago where the term emotionally unemployed came up. And we talked about, like, hey, remember when, like, we have similar stories, Joe and I, and, like, all of a sudden my full-time job was no longer being an anxious person. I didn't know. I didn't know what to do with myself. I remember calling my old therapist, who I didn't have for very long, and I called her for like a one-off session. I said, "What do I do now? What the hell do I do?" I didn't know what to do. I had been fired from my full-time job, trying to not be anxious, and she said, "I don't know, go to Starbucks and have coffee." And I was like, "What? Like, that sounds ridiculous." She was like, "Yeah, or I don't know, go to the beach, sit in the sand for a little while." So she just threw out ridiculous things, or what I thought was ridiculous. Like, how is that supposed to help me? What does that do? But in the end, she was right. So there is a little bit of a hole when you no longer completely consumed all the time with how you feel and trying to not be anxious and trying to, like, navigate through all this stuff. All of a sudden, you have all kinds of extra cycles in your brain available, and mental horsepower and emotional horsepower and just time. And my best advice to you, Maureen, and anybody who has this question is, just start trying stuff again. Sometimes you don't know what you want to do and how you want to fill that. And the best way to figure that out is to just start trying things. Sun is on me, so let's try and get the exposure a little bit more. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Um, so yeah, just start trying shit. That's the way I had to do it. This is a common question. Why do we have to take one step forward and six steps back all the time? Dude, those aren't steps back. I'm not. I would tell you that they're not steps back. So your thought is like, oh well, I feel a certain way. So I was feeling better and now I don't feel better anymore. I'm feeling a thing, I'm thinking things again. So that's backwards. No, it's not. Like, as long as you continue to work on how you react to how you feel, then those are not six steps backward. I mean, I wish I could tell you that every single day is an improvement linearly, and you just, that's it, and you're done and you recover quickly in 3 months. It doesn't happen that way. I can't tell you why. But I don't, be careful about six steps back. And this is such a common thing. We're talking about what recovery looks like, but I hear it all the time, and it makes me a little bit crazy. Um, I'm back to square one. I was doing so great. I felt so good for 2 weeks, and last night I had a panic attack, and I'm back to square one, six steps back. That's not true. That's not true. Oh, you feel things, or you're thinking things. Humans think, humans feel. You're learning to do that again in a more productive, sort of normalized way. So take the practice. Right? So it's important to say that. And I think one of the reasons why it's not linear, to be honest with you, this is just as me postulating. I have no evidence on this, so take this as gospel. But that threat response, anxiety is here to keep us safe. It thinks it's keeping us safe. That part of our brain, that part of our functioning, is designed to keep us safe from threats, things that could be problems for us. So it would be a bad idea in terms of design and evolution, or whatever you believe, to design that to be easy to turn off. We want a survival and threat detection mechanism to be fast, to be brutally, like, efficient, to be easy to turn on, and to be hard to turn off. If we made that response, if that response was really easy to turn off, we probably wouldn't be here. We would have died out long ago. Saber-toothed tigers would rule the world. Anyway, um, let's see. Layla is here. Hey, Layla. Good to see you, my friend. Oh, let's give a little shout out to Layla, who's about to get her hair cut and colored. And I know that that is a big deal for you, and I appreciate that. You guys, if you want to, you should go follow Layla on Instagram. She is at Lettered Cottage. The Lettered Cottage? How could I not know this? But Layla shares pretty openly about her anxiety stuff, and she's just a good person. So go check out Layla on Instagram. Um, so there you go. I put that comment up twice. Sorry about that. Let's see here. A couple of last comments, and then we'll hit it. After recovery, do we still have? Yes. Let me throw this up on the screen really quick. After recovery, do we still have the fight, flight, freeze response? That's part of being human. Yes, we do. It doesn't get triggered at inappropriate times. The problem is that fight, flight, freeze response is on an absolute hair trigger right now. Everything becomes a trigger. Whereas in recovery, like, yeah, I hope I still have a fight or flight response. I really need it. I like my fight or flight response. I just don't need it all the damn time, like I used to think I needed it all the damn time. So no, we want that. We're not trying to engineer that out of your life. It just becomes far less important because it rears its head far less often. Right? Does that make sense? Lawyers have the worst complexes. Is that true? Maybe it is true. I don't know. Let's see. Lely, all I'm going to say is don't get so stuck on like, is this recovered? Am I recovered now? Is this recovered? Is this proper recovery? You might want to. Last week's Recovery Monday, we talked about that. Sometimes that paralysis that happens when you want to judge every single thing you do, judging every thought you have, every action you take. Is this recovery? Is this good? Is this right? Drop that. Drop that. I feel like I have to accept anxiety day to day. Practice self. Okay, that's the process of recovery, right? So stop worrying about whether you are recovered and just work the process. I did a podcast episode not too long ago about being process focused and not outcome focused. So I would tell you to go check that out in a big way. Don't worry so much about the outcome. Just stay focused on the process. What you're describing there in that comment is exactly what the process of recovery looks like. So keep going. No. Let's see. Okay, I'll throw this up real quick, but then, well, let me just see how much I got. There's probably not many more. Yeah, we're at the end. Okay. Let me pop up one more time because I think this is probably an important one. Mm, I cried. It must be a recovery thing. Let's see. Stick with me here. I just saw a comment about an actual dangerous situation. Where the hell was it? I'm sorry. Let me scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Here we go. Throw this one up real quick. Horace, how would you suggest dealing with high anxiety or near panic when in dangerous situations, like being at a train or a bus when a fight is about to break out or robbery is happening? That is where recovery is not recovery. That's where anxiety and fear actually are serve a purpose. We want them. So when I said before, I want my fight, flight, and freeze response. That's why I want them. In that situation, you have to make the best assessment you can. Like I either got to get out of here, which is totally okay. If there's a robbery going on in the restaurant that you're in, and you can get yourself out of that, then by all means do that. Like nobody is telling you that you're supposed to float and accept through literally actually dangerous situations like that. If there's a fight happening next to you and guys are throwing punches at each other and you have no needs to be throwing those punches and get out of there. That's totally okay. I think that's a confusing thing for a lot of people too. That somehow or other, like the principles of recovery will apply to every aspect of life, and they do not. So if there are two dudes going at it with knives next to you, then by all means, get the hell out of the way. Like that's okay. That's when the actual healthy, normal purpose of fight or flight matters. So we want it to be there, right? All right, so I'm scrolling down a little bit here, and I think we're good. Let's see here. That's where you see the message. Like, yay, it's not working. I'm not anxious. Okay, this is good. Kendra's gotten this is the process versus outcome thing. I used to be like, yay, it's working. I'm not anxious. And then when you would get anxious, like all of a sudden you declare a disaster, right? Oh my God, it's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. But in the end, when you become process focused, you stop doing that. You could be frustrated that you're feeling anxious today or feeling like you're having a bad day. That's normal. You just don't have to be afraid of that and call it disaster, right? So there you go. All right, I think I'm kind of pretty much out of comments here. Very good. Let's watch Beaches and What About Bob. I'm working on What About Bob. I don't know. That might happen. It might never happen. We'll see. Anyway, guys, that is it. We are done. We have finished this book. I will remind you that all of the Recovery Monday episodes stay on my YouTube channel. They're in a playlist called Recovery Monday. And if you don't have a copy of The Anxious Truth and you want to get it, just go to my website at theanxioustruth.com and you can grab it. And then you can go back and watch all of these videos again and you go through the book chapter by chapter. So if you want to do that, you're certainly welcome. So what are we going to do after this? I haven't decided yet, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to do this book, right? Is that backwards? I think it might be backwards. I can't tell. Am I mirroring my video? So I think we're going to do 7% slower after this. It's a much smaller book, but I need a little bit of time to sort of break it down and see how we're going to go through lessons in 7% slower. But we will do that. I think next week, probably no live stream. I have no classes next week. I have a week off at school, so I'm going to try not to do a live stream next week, but I will make an announcement after that, and we will do the first 7% slower. We'll do Q&As now and then. I'm going to try and bring some of the crew back on from time to time, you know, the old crew, and we'll do some Q&As with those folks, and we'll keep it going. I like the Monday live stream, so I will figure out what it's going to be. We'll definitely do 7% slower, and we'll sprinkle some other shit in there too. So thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with me for 33 weeks. we'll go figure out another 33 after this, I guess. Anyway, that's it. See you guys later.